times where many Pride events, unfortunately, have either been postponed or cancelled, where we normally reach out to a number of different events, individuals, etc. Many of you may have found that your social networking opportunity and your opportunity to be able to liaise with other LGBT plus folk, unfortunately, is not available. So what we thought is, instead of actually just leaving this as is and not doing anything at all, we've decided to promote a healthy mind and good well-being, that we're going to reach out to you all through this wonderful, wonderful method called the interweb to be able to keep doing this for you. So it's been absolutely lovely. So we've done this over the last 18 weeks, 9 episodes. And essentially, this is what we're going to be doing for you today. So, as I'm sure you're aware, we would love you to be interactive with us as well. At the top of our pages up here, I think, or is it somewhere else now? Because I can't see what we look like anymore. It is at the top. Brilliant. So at the top up here, you can interact with us. So if you want to, we have got our mailbox is live at the moment, so if you wanted to interact with us and send us an email whilst we're live on the air, you can email us at info, that's info, at myumbrella.org.uk. You can also tweet us as well. You have to start your tweet with hashtag Under The Brolly, and our handle is at myumbrella. All right.
Yes, it is.
Good, that's excellent. Yeah. Okay, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and all other popular platforms as well. But also, we do have two. I know we could just about cope with one, but now we've got two live chat streams as well. We've got one on Facebook, which Tom's going to be keeping an eye on for us as well. And Kerry is going to be keeping on the other one, which is on the Reading Pride page. Is that right, Kerry? Excellent. I think you're muted. Right. Okay. Okay, yeah, so I think Kerry was saying yes. Was Kerry saying yes? Am I going with
Sorry,
yeah?
I muted my microphone because I am still eating dinner. It's a shared link on Reading Pride, so there might not be comments in a chat room on Reading Pride because it's a shared link. It's not streaming through Reading Pride, if that makes any sense. But if there's any comments on the shared link, I will share them.
Brilliant, there we are. Fantastic. Excellent, brilliant. This is going very well. Excellent. Okay. You can also find us, like I said, on all good social media platforms. However, now that I've done the typical spiel, look, it is the typical, look, see, we actually write this stuff down. I should know this after 18 weeks. We have got some brilliant, brilliant guests to introduce you to today. So if I just get everyone to give us a wave in the different windows, please. So first of all, we should have me and Steve, that's you. No, I'm Steve, you're you. Well, basically, it's me and Tom here in Western Supermare. You can almost hear the wheels coming off, can't you? So it's me and Tom in Western Supermare. We've got Kerry, one of our co-founders. Give us a wave, Kerry. Kerry is in West Reading. Chrissy, can you give us a wave as well, please? Chrissy is based up in Didcot as well. Mikey is our producer, who's currently in the clouds. We can hear him, but you can't, so I don't know who's the lucky one. And then we've also got, and I need to make sure I get the name correct. Is it Aaron?
Yeah, that's right.
It correctly. It's not Aaron. It's Aaron and Alex from Equal Bloods Wales. In between this stuff, it's going to be interesting. That I'm going to see if I can get you to fight across screen to say who wants to say what first. So if I go with Aaron first and then Alex after. So Aaron, tell us a bit about yourselves, please.
Lovely. Thank you very much for having us on. You know, we're big fans ourselves, and we've met you at several prides over the last couple of years, whilst we've been active in LGBT plus activism and trying to get and secure more rights for LGBT plus people. So my name is Aaron. I live in Swansea in South Wales, and I'm a trustee of Swansea Pride, but I'm also an activist in the GMB Union, and that has led us to set up Blood Equality Wales, which is campaigning on a really important issue, something that's really close to my heart, to enable people who are discriminated against currently by current blood donation laws to be able to. So that's a really important issue for in particular. We've got other campaigns within our Wales and South West, which are looking at the Gender Recognition Act, for example. But this is one of our live campaigns that we've come on to talk about today. So hopefully we'll be able to answer some questions and tell you a little bit more about that later on.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you, Aaron. Apologies there for a second. I thought my microphone was going to fall off the table then. I thought I could have made a hell of a noise. Okay, over to you now. Alex, please, tell us a little bit about yourself, please, just so that us and the viewers know a little bit more.
Yeah, hiya, and thank you for having us tonight. As Aaron said, we are activists with the GM. We're both based in Wales. Aaron said he's based in Swansea. I'm based in Llanelli, Carmarthenshire. As a day-to-day role, I sort of work as a project coordinator for a national lottery-run project in Carmarthenshire called the Carmarthenshire LGBTQ+ project, which is designed to create a more inclusive, safe and welcoming county for the LGBT community. But with the GMB Union, and as Aaron and I, as a couple, we've started a campaign, Blood Equality Wales, which is looking to challenge the laws around blood donation for men who have sex with men. So yeah, it's just about me really. It's just the fact that I'm passionate about campaigning for equality, and I'm passionate about making that change. And I'm just quite excited really to come on here and talk a bit more about the campaign that we're running.
Wonderful, excellent. Well, it sounds like you've been doing some amazing work, and what's really nice actually is that we a couple of years, well, I say a couple of years, it was last year actually. Yeah, last year we had the pleasure of attending both Swansea Pride and we did Llanelli Pride as well, and it was absolutely fantastic. One of the first times we've ever actually managed to get across the bridge. It's got absolutely no relation whatsoever to the bridge fee being abolished, and I'd just like to point that out, okay, because we do have a bit of cash, but I mean, even I can stump up a couple of quid. But thank you so much for having us both over there, because it was absolutely wonderful. We came away from there feeling very welcome and very humbled as well, because both of those prides were very, very new. And it was just a lovely, lovely environment and a wonderful atmosphere for people that had basically just kind of got used to that sort of event going on in essentially what is a small, well, two small Welsh towns really. I mean, Swansea's fairly large in comparison to Llanelli, but absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much indeed.
I saw, well, I met Russell T Davies at Swansea Pride.
You did.
Yeah, I was a bit starstruck, wasn't I?
You very much were, yes. I had to drag you away at one point.
Well, I saw him from quite far away, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Russell T Davies!" And then you were like, "Let's go and talk to him." I was like, "No." And then we got a picture, and he was lovely. He was so lovely.
Well, thank you for your introductions there. We're just going to do a couple of updates from the chat room just to see who's watching, who's listening, and potentially you might get some questions thrown at you as well. So do brace yourselves for that, because this is live, so we have no idea what's going to happen. But we'll see what happens now. So what have we got going on in the chat room?
Well, they say you should never work with children or animals.
Correct.
Well, we've actually got Lucky watching us today.
Have we?
Yeah, Jackson and Lucky.
Oh, there we go. Okay, Lucky and Jackson are both very, very big friends of the show.
We've also got Joanne and Reading Pride. We have hit the heady heights of 12 so far. Obviously, it's been lower since lockdown has eased, but we'll probably get bigger. And obviously, people in the future, hello, watching this. But that's it for Facebook at the moment. Brilliant.
Okay, so today's episode focus, I understand, is actually around Hepatitis Awareness Day, which this year is on July the 28th. So slightly later than we were expecting to go live for as well. But I do understand that I need to pass over to Chrissy, who's going to give us some information about the relevance of that particular day and why it's so important.
So, just a short snippet from me then. World Hepatitis Day takes place every year on the 28th of July, bringing the world together under a single theme to raise awareness of the global burden of viral hepatitis and to implement real change. This year in 2020, it had a theme of Find the Missing Millions. Worldwide, 290 million people are living with this awful virus infection, some even unaware, and going without undiagnosed. On Worldwide Hepatitis Day, we called upon people to share the theme and take action raising awareness of this. And to find out more information, do feel free to visit www.worldhepatitisday.org. Back to you, Steve.
Wonderful, thank you, Chrissy. Now, there is a reason why we've got Aaron and Alex on. The relevance and certainly the distinction between the work that Aaron and Alex do and also the relation to Hepatitis Awareness Day is quite distinct. And essentially, Aaron and Alex, this is your opportunity really just to tell us exactly what you've been doing as far as the work with what you've set up, and also essentially, do you get involved quite closely with Hepatitis Awareness Day as far as the work that you actually do?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Obviously there are loads of technical questions around blood donation and behind it. And our argument all along has been to accept those arguments, to look at them in detail. But what we're asking for in our campaign is a dual assessment to blood donation for everybody, to just being discriminated against on the basis of your sexuality, or your gender, or anything that you're involved with doing. There are swathes of people who are discriminated against when they arrive at the blood bank to give blood, and what we are saying is that gay for men in particular, but also it does impact on transgender people and sex workers, for example, that they are being discriminated against because they are deemed as being promiscuous, whereas in fact we know that you could be an ordinary characteristic and not face those levels of discrimination, and currently that is the case. I mean, hepatitis, HIV, they don't discriminate. They're not, they don't just exist around LGBT plus people, and that's something that this law sort of makes out. And what we are saying is that all blood is screened before use anyway, and that an individual risk assessment approach should be taken. Everybody who arrives at a blood bank to give blood is asked the same questions based on how they live their life, and that they are accepted or rejected on those terms rather than on the terms of their gender or sexuality. And that's a really good point about working with larger organisations around hepatitis. The answer to that is yes. The that will be released later on this year will include lots of information and science behind blood donation by people who have a blood-borne virus, for example, or who are more at risk of getting those viruses. But I think what we need to remember is blood donation is dropping, is falling all the time, and that blood from somebody, blood from two different people, can't tell the difference when it's in the blood bag and somebody needs it to be donated. At the end of the day, I'm safe blood, but I'm not able to donate, and I think that's really frustrating and wrong. I'm not sure. Alex is the scientist between us both. So Alex has probably got more of a scientific answer to that. Mine comes much more from the heart, and Alex's comes much more from the head, into science. So I'll let Alex the science and the factual stuff.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Aaron. It's clear that you're really, really passionate about this, and you do share a lot of thoughts of certainly a lot of individuals out there within the LGBT plus community. And it very much does boil down to almost tarring everybody with the same brush, which does seem incredibly inconsiderate, and also at the same time incredibly unfair when you think about the current position that we're in, where, as you've said, blood donations at the moment are dropping, and you almost feel sorry that when you hear the actual National Blood Service put their appeals out saying, look, we really need these particular blood types as well, we need people out there, and actually at the end of the day, they're crying out for this, but actually at the same time, on the other side, they're actually preventing people that would actually go out of their way and take the time to go and donate the blood and actually say, well, I'm actually really sorry, but I know we need it, but actually yours isn't good enough. There has to be a change of priorities there, certainly in terms of what you said. As Aaron said, Alex, you're the scientist there, so I mean it's almost like look out, here comes a bus. But let's go with that. So give us the rundown on the science bit.
Okay, well, like Aaron mentioned there, that there are a couple of blood-borne pathogens which have triggered the whole this law to come into being, really. It was sort of brought in as emergency legislation in the 1980s at the height of the AIDS crisis, and of course back then, AIDS wasn't called AIDS as we know it today. It was called GRID, which, for those who don't know what that means, it stands for gay-related immune deficiency. So there was a prejudice there that this virus was solely transmitted by gay men or bisexual men or men who have sex with men. And the law was formulated around that. Now, you know, in a way, you can have some sort of sympathy because obviously they didn't really know much about this virus at the time. But today, there isn't really justification for this law because we understand a lot more about the biology of blood-borne pathogens, especially HIV. There's a lot of research gone into HIV to understand it better. So the law is effectively redundant in terms of protecting populations because we now know that there are people, well, HIV can affect anyone. And of course, there are people who are not subjected to these deferral periods that gay and bisexual, or I should use the term men who have sex with men, are subjected to. Now, when it comes to a bit of science about blood, there's some reasons why this law is actually detrimental. And that is, as Aaron said, the number of male blood donors dropping. And male blood is particularly important for a couple of different reasons. Mm-hmm. Biologically, male blood has a higher level of hemoglobin in it. There's higher iron concentration in male blood. Now, if you're going to give a transfusion to a child or an infant, infant blood has higher levels of hemoglobin and iron anyway. Now, the only blood that could be given in a transfusion, an emergency transfusion, would be male blood, because it's the only blood, adult male blood, is the only type of blood that sort of doesn't quite reach the levels of iron in children's blood, but it gets pretty close. Unfortunately, with blood from a female, don't quite have those levels of iron there, so for children. Also, biologically speaking, when women get pregnant, their body produces excess of bodies that can have a sort of an anti-human antibody effect. So obviously, the fetus growing in the woman is technically seen as a foreign body, and that's why it's in the womb, to keep it safe from the blood from the woman does not cross into the womb. So those antibodies can't get there. But obviously, if that woman then goes to give blood post-pregnancy, those antibodies are still circulating in her blood, and that can then have an effect on the recipient of the blood. It can be actually quite damaging. Also, to tie it in with a bit more into sort of more recent events, really, is the whole plasma, convalescent plasma with COVID. Now, coming back to antibodies, and this is where it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself. With convalescent plasma, gay, bisexual men are, again, restricted from donating blood because of these laws. And of course, that's having an effect now on people who need that plasma. They're not getting it because a lot of men who have had COVID are not able to donate. Now, male blood, when it comes to anti-COVID antibodies, actually produces a higher level of these antibodies. So it would be beneficial to give male blood when it comes to convalescent antibodies. And of course, they can't. A lot of men who identify as gay or bisexual cannot freely donate blood, and therefore they can't help out in this case. So it's quite a convoluted and problematic situation, really, with this law, because it's preventing people really from getting healthy, good quality blood products, all because of a biased stereotype that the law was founded on, really, 40 odd years ago. So that's a little bit about the science there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I absolutely fascinating as far as I never actually realised that as far as the hemoglobin levels within blood in particular, especially if it's in children, were actually certainly that high that the comparable would be essentially a blood transfusion from male blood. That was never something that even crossed my mind, and I was always of the opinion that essentially when you do a transfusion, essentially it's like for like. You would essentially, if a child needs a blood transfusion, then it needs to be blood from a child. That was something that, in all honesty, I think there's probably a lot of people out there that are watching this now that there's a few things that you certainly said that certainly sparked some thoughts as far as, oh, hang on a second, that's something that nobody would have been aware of, up to a point where they've either read it in a book, watched it on a YouTube video. I certainly wouldn't think it would come up in a TED talk, but I mean, at the very same respect, I mean, this has been incredibly informative. One thing in particular, I know you're probably itching to ask a question as well. I've got a particular question as well, and this might kind of not stir up more questions in particular, but going back to essentially when we had what was back in the day, what was the AIDS crisis, and before that it was called, am I right in saying it was GRID, GRID?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel, and this is controversial to ask, so by all means feel free to just say, do you know what, it's a bit of a deep question. From when that first came about and the actual disease was first presented as a disease that was to do with gay or bisexual men, and it tended to originate itself around that particular sector of the LGBT plus community, do you feel that as a result of that, there has been a historical or legacy that has then been passed throughout the LGBT plus community, and society as a whole will still always revert back to that without a greater understanding of actually, did it really originate within that, or was there something else? But should it be discovered that actually this wasn't a disease that was just focused purely around gay, bisexual men or men that have sex with the men, but actually it was around society as a whole, but they've just needed someone to point the finger at? Do you feel that that's really what's happened, or do you think that there's something else there?
Well, yes. I mean, at the end of the day, when AIDS and HIV reared its rather ugly head back in the 80s, society was very different to how it is today in terms of attitude. And of course, we have to remember as well that HIV and AIDS first appeared, or was first documented, in New York. And of course, in American society, they have at that time much stronger, bigoted views really against the LGBT community than you would have had here. And of course, that stigma has stayed there, hasn't it? It stayed that, you have all these gay men in the 80s getting infected with this strange disease, and it's because of their behavior. It wouldn't happen in a nuclear family. It wouldn't happen in a heterosexual relationship. But I mean, as time has gone on, we can see that that's just simply not true. I mean, the Terence Higgins Trust released some statistics the other day to sort of highlight what they class as the invisible population of HIV, and apparently in the UK there are 1/3 of all HIV cases are actually in women, and not, they count for 1/3 of all cases. So that itself blows a hole in the whole argument that it's a gay disease. Even if we still thought that way, gay men, But yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the problem. There's such a strong stigma, and don't forget, back in the 80s, people were petrified of this disease. We've all seen the advert. AIDS don't die of ignorance. It's horrific. The advert is, and it scared people. And of course, people are gonna. It's been so ingrained in people to see AIDS and HIV as a gay disease that a lot of people aren't going to change their views on that. But the best we can do is to obviously provide education and provide people with the knowledge about the facts of it, really. And as generations go on, obviously people will understand it better and come to see it in a different light. But yeah, absolutely, there's definitely a stigma with HIV, and that has definitely impacted on the blood donation laws.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for that. And I'm going to go over to Tom, because I know you're itching. There must be stuff going on. Absolutely wild in the chat room.
There's a couple bits to chat about. I've got a question.
Oh, okay. Question.
So you were saying about the fact that this has come from a very old legislation primarily about kind of like the gay and bi men side of things. Now, I'm massively squeamish, and I think very easily. So I actually did try and look up if I could give blood at one point. I got as far as the first paragraph. Ill now, so I'm not going to be able to do it. So I wasn't actually able to find out whether or not I could do it, and it's not going to happen even if I could, because I can't do it. But me and Steve are asexual, so what I kind of hear with that legislation is like it's so outdated that there's not even that consideration that there are now couples who are non-binary or trans, or maybe there's ones like who are identifying as asexual spectrum identities, which would then mean that there's either there isn't any sexual activity, or it would be that there is, but due to some loophole, the way it all works, it's based around this kind of gay and bi thing, that it doesn't, they kind of get through it. So it feels like not only is it outdated, but it's completely out of touch with this whole way that identities and orientations seem to be going. Yeah. So I guess my view would be like, what would me and Steve, for example, be penalised because we are a same-sex couple, not because of our identity or whether or not we have sex? That's what I'd be asking.
I think that's a really, really good point that you actually, we're it's the Welsh Parliament elections next year, and we're currently drafting our pledges for candidates to sign up to. And one of the big pledges in there is about recognising that actually, society is very, very different now to what people accepted before. I mean, being LGBT plus isn't new. But it being accepted is new, and I think you make a really, really good point there about people who identify, with different things, and that being a real issue actually to access any government services. So you've probably had instances, or people watching this have probably had instances where you've had to fill in a job application form or a government application form for something where the option that you identify with isn't there, because, for example, there's a form that says, oh, you're either male or you're female, and that isn't the case at all. And actually our wider campaign is focusing on making giving blood, for example, an easier process with whatever you identify as, because I was on my 12th pint of donating blood before I came out as a gay man at 22, and I've been giving blood regularly every 12 weeks, as you can if you're a man, 16 weeks if you're a woman. But that's an example there of, you read the website and it's very male or female. So it doesn't account for transgender people or non-binary people who may be going through that process, or somebody at the very start of the transgender process. And that's a really, really good point, and that's something we've been raising through our campaign, is that, actually this process is so old-fashioned that it doesn't account for anything other really than the nuclear family, and the what was considered the norm 40 years ago. But what it does do is it directly discriminates against people who have rights in other laws. So actually, laws around blood donation fly in the face of the Equality Act 2010, for example, and yet we're still having to fight for rights. The Equality Act 2010 is used, I feel, by the government and lots of government agencies as, we're ticking this box, we're ticking that box. Well, you're not ticking any boxes at all, because it's still really, really hard for people who are LGBT to live a normal life like everybody else. For example, I'd like to be able to donate blood, but I can't. And that's our argument. So I hope I've answered your question. Our campaign does absolutely include a campaign around identifying that society is very, very different. All sorts of, relationships look very different. People, can be gender fluid, and people are non-binary. And that all those are valid, but it needs to be validated within the process.
Absolutely. I think some hugely valid comments there, and I'm going to be honest. I'm just actually watching the chat room. There's a few people just popping a few extra bits in there as well. I don't know if you want to just pick up a few of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple of things. First of all, hi to Luke, who is the goodest boy. We must point out.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
also, we've got Joanne, who's left a comment saying, proud to support Blood Equality Wales, Aaron and Alex have worked extremely hard in this campaign, and their commitment is commendable. Proud to count them both as friends.
Oh, wonderful. I think we met, Joanne, we met you at Clonethley Pride, and you were probably at, well, I'll be honest.
Yes, of course, I remember you now,
honestly,
Joe,
I mean, for how hot it was in there, we should have attached jump leads to your earrings as you were running around to power the ceiling fans, because you were just non-stop, and it was just literally, it was brilliant. We absolutely love you, Joanne. Thank you so much for popping that in the chat room for us as well. There is something that, before we move on to Jackson's comment, actually, which is incredibly valid and a really good point made, was actually, I think Kerry just chucked something into the WhatsApp group, which is actually interesting. I don't know, do you want us to bring that up, Kerry, or are you happy to be chucked under the bus for that one?
You can do. I mean, I only sort of threw it in because we were sort of on the subject of blood donation and hepatitis, the hepatitis being a liver based disease. If you have excess levels, this is the pharmacy medic side of me. If you have excess levels of bilirubin in your blood, means you're unable to donate.
Okay.
So I have a liver disorder where my liver is unable to process bilirubin. Mm-hmm. So I can't donate blood because of that, which I found quite interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So looking at what you put in there, it's to do with if the blood appears jaundiced, is that right? That
yes.
Even if you've given blood afterwards and then it's then later discovered, it appears in a particular way which causes yellowing of the eyes. I did read it. It's brilliant. I did read it. That essentially, even if you weren't to know about, would there still be some communication back to you to say thanks so much for your donation, but actually we've had to pour it down the sink? Not that they would, but you know, whatever it is they do with blood that can't be used.
Yeah, absolutely. I've donated blood, previously, and it's a really good process actually for a bit of an MOT, because obviously that blood is screened, and if there's anything wrong, they'll let you know. But there never has been with me. I'm completely fine and safe to donate blood. This campaign, by the way, is that there will be instances where people can't donate blood. If there's a medical condition that means you can't donate blood, then absolutely, that's understandable, and that's something we can accept. But being gay or bisexual isn't a medical, and that and we're put in the same box as medical conditions. If I had hepatitis or I had HIV, or then obviously I would understand that my health would have to come before giving blood, and other people's health would have to come before giving blood, and that's completely understandable, isn't it? But generalize against every single person who identifies as anything other than what they want you to on the form is wrong, because that's saying that there is something wrong with us, whereas the Equality Act 2010 says that there isn't anything wrong with us. So it's that balance of argument, isn't it?
I mean, this is why an individualized approach is so important. You can't just simply put a sweeping ban or a sweeping restriction on people all because they fit into one category. It's just wrong. You have to have an individualized approach. So you have to take a person's lifestyle, health, behavior, relationship, sexual activity, whatever. All of that has to be taken into consideration before donating blood. It's actually offensive to say to people, oh well, because you're a man who has sex with men, it doesn't matter the fact that you're in a monogamous relationship that's mutually exclusive, you're still high risk. It's wrong. The interesting thing will be, though, is if an individualized approach does come in, what you'll find is that some people who may currently be able to donate blood may find that they have restrictions, and then people who are currently restricted may find that, well, they're free to donate blood as and when. So it's interesting, really, how that would play out in the long term as well. And I think the only way forward is to have that individualized approach. So we can say to people, yes, you're fine to donate blood, and we welcome your donation. And to other people then, okay, you know, we've screened your blood, we've seen that there's you know, there's something there that could be harmful to a recipient, but it's also not good for you to donate blood because, you know, you've had a condition or you need that excess blood, you can't afford to lose the blood. So I think that's why we need that sort of approach, really.
I think one of the frustrating things I think that potentially I can see coming out of this is going to be that, this will frustrate me. One thing else is that this will be completely valid and it'll be absolutely amazing. Everyone will listen to it, and what they'll then turn around and say is, I'm really sorry, but for what you're actually asking us to do, as far as making this a more funneled approach, has to be a sweeping approach, we just don't have the funds behind us to be able to do that sort of level of granular approach. Now, that would really surprise me, bearing in mind we've got apps for this and apps for that. I mean, COVID has gone absolutely bonkers as far as you've got an app now to tell you if you've been in contact with somebody else. Potentially, there could be an opportunity out there that the technology will exist where you could go to this granular level, as simple as potentially an app, a screening app, which you will be attached to your NHS registration number, which everybody's got. Everyone's got an NHS number. It's bespoke and individual to you, which means that you would have this and you will be able to update this and put the information in as and when it happens real time to be able to give you that validation so that you'll be able to go to, for example, a blood donation centre and say, code here, it says that I've done this and I have to do this, say, for example, every 12 weeks, as Aaron said before, you have to renew it every 12 weeks and declare if you've had a change in circumstances or something else has happened. Potentially, there could be an amazing opportunity for all of this amazing work that you are both doing to actually be backed up and pushed forward in something as simple as an app. And it will really frustrate me if at the end of the day, once all of this has gone forward, they turn around and say, I'm really sorry, but we don't have the budget for it. They seem to always have the budget to do everything else that seems to fall outside of anything I'd regard as important. And this seems to be the thing that is probably one of the most important things that we could possibly be screaming about right now. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really good point. I think the other angle to that is that currently I could go to the blood bank and lie, couldn't I? I could go to the blood bank and lie about my circumstances and donate blood, but I shouldn't have to. And I would never do that because, you know, that's wrong, isn't it? It's wrong to lie and it's completely dishonest. But also, why should I have to lie about who I am? And that's how it makes you feel. I mean, I remember, and some of the questions on the form are really personal, okay, and they go into lots of detail. And I remember thinking, oh well, you know, there's going to come a time where I'm not going to be able to donate blood because if I answer yes, you know, you turned away. And I remember the time that I went there, filled out the form, and I was asked, oh well, you know, sorry, you failed the risk assessment, you're going to have to leave. But I know my blood is safe to donate, so I think that's a really good point. It is simple to remedy because, you know, currently, as I said, you could lie, and they'd be in the same boat to you know, as if you didn't lie. So it is easy to change, and the technology exists now as well to be able to make that a simpler process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, I mean, what's a good thing that's come out of all this COVID as well is there's an increased sort of focus on health. So if the law were to change now at this point in time, within the next 6 months or so, there would be an increased focus on health because of COVID. So, I mean, it might actually play in the favour of blood donation because they can say, well, yeah, there is a budget because we have to put X, Y, and Z amount of money into health and health causes and yeah, I mean, an app like that would be fantastic. Of course, you know, we have to sort of look at it from a data protection angle as well, because obviously you're going to have a lot of personal information on there that, you know, could get, you know, hacked into or could fall into the wrong hands. But moving, you know, in that direction, I don't see why that couldn't be sorted. No, absolutely.
Absolutely. In particular, I'm just going to mention a comment that was in the chat room, but I know that Kerry is waving around. Go for it, sweet.
if there was an app, there is a thing called patient access, which you register with your GP, and you can do your GP appointments, repeat prescriptions, and all that jazz through it. But you can also access your medical records through it.
Okay.
It is a free app. It allows you to connect with local health services when you need them most, book GP appointments, order repeat prescriptions, discover local health services for you or your family. That's just off their website. But it does give you your medical records. So if you do go for a blood test and such comes up, it will come up on that. So that would sort of almost fill in that app gap. Per se.
Is this something you can download and go for, or you have to be referred by your GP to have access to it?
You can download the app. If you say, for example, you want to order your repeat prescription and you want to do it through their website, they normally now divert you from their website. You speak to your GP and they will normally give you like a password so that you can access it. So you wouldn't need to speak to your doctor directly. You could just phone up, speak to a receptionist, say, I would like access to patient access. And you'd normally just have to supply your email address and then they can sort of set you up that way.
That's really good. I think what's probably worth mentioning, talking about prescriptions and things like that, is that in Wales now, the Welsh Government have committed to making PrEP freely available in Wales. So it's available to everybody. And in Wales, our prescriptions are free. So that's really important.
Jammy git.
In England, the UK government has really stalled on this and is really, really behind on access to PrEP. It's select few people on a trial, and it's a trial after trial after trial. And even though we know the trial is completely successful, I mean, in Wales, not one person has contracted HIV whilst taking PrEP. So we know that it's a successful drug. There's lots of work to do in England around public health first before something like this could become a reality. But actually, PrEP could lead to the eradication of HIV, couldn't it? So, and in Wales, we're being really progressive in doing that. And I think, credit to the Welsh Government really in making that health programme freely available, because it will make our kind of reality eventually, even in the long run, even if not in the short run.
Thank you for that, Aaron. There is, I think, again, very, very valuable, and it's nice to actually hear that the Welsh Government are being so progressive over this. And I'm hoping that a lot of what is being done isn't falling on deaf ears as far as the English government. We've got something that's mentioned in the chat room actually by Jackson. It's entitled Story Time / Rant. Made a throwaway comment the other day about how I can't donate blood because I'm gay, and a family member responded. It looks like it was said in a more joking term. I can't donate blood because I'm an attack helicopter. So essentially, it's almost as if it's not particularly well known out there that, as far as unless you're actually actively involved within the LGBT plus community, other sectors or sections of the community wouldn't even be aware that this is actually an issue. And I think probably raising awareness of this and making this more well known so that we can actually get our straight allies and our trans allies and essentially the army of allies that we have behind us on our side, the more people that actually know the restrictions that are currently in place, where there is no blood equality as it currently stands, the better chance we've got about pushing forward and actually getting voices heard, and actually a decent fight, really, to actually get people to listen to what's being done.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that we're trying to do. I mean, I think that's a really valid point. Whenever I've talked to any of my colleagues or friends about this, they've been really shocked that I can't donate blood. Simply just, for something as it seems really small and trivial to them that I'm gay. It doesn't matter. That shouldn't matter. Why does that matter if you're giving blood? But so yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, sometimes if that doesn't affect you, it's not that you're ignorant to it. It's just that you didn't know. And that is something that we're trying to do with our trade union friends and through the trade union movement. It is raising those issues through things like conferences and congresses, trying trying to get like a public education program out there, you know, on these particular issues. And I think, you know, that there's lots of opportunity, isn't there, you know, around the education of people on these wider issues. You know, and this is just one small thing. I mean, you know, there's lots of different things affecting the LGBT plus community at the moment. I think the Gender Recognition Act is another really, really big, you know, political hot potato at the moment, and all these different things that are going on, hopefully, are bringing LGBT plus issues to the forefront. You know, and making people realise that, you know, it is still a struggle sometimes to just be able to just live your life normally like everybody else.
Yeah, very much. This has been incredibly informative, and I know that it's going to cause lots and lots of talking points. Certainly, I'd love to think we're going to get some emails in. I've not had anything come in yet, but this is definitely one of those things where it's more of a proactive response as opposed to reactive. So we may get some responses in from this. We may have some emails that we need to forward on to you, just in case there's anyone that's got any questions out there at all. And again, just to those of you that are actually watching and listening out there, if you do want to put a question forward to either Aaron or Alex, I know that we're coming to the end of today's episode, but do drop us an email to info@myumbrella.org.uk, and be sure to pass that on to Aaron and Alex, and then we can get a response back to you as well, because I think some of the points that we brought up here today certainly are going to generate some thoughts and some feelings as far as what can be done, or is there more that we can do within our individual communities, our individual towns, etc., just to even just have a conversation, even just contact your local MP, even contact your local councillor to ask what's actually being done in the local area as far as raising awareness, or who people can actually speak to as far as signposting or support there, if people genuinely have a reaction back from, I'm sorry, but you can't give blood because of the type of person that you are. Because I know that for someone, I'm an experienced gay man, it's not the word I'm looking for. Essentially, I'm 37 years of age. I've been out since I was 14, 15. I know that it's pretty damning when you're already going through that, discovering who you are and discovering your identity, to then start realizing that actually not only are you segregated from a community or society, from the point at which you're suddenly realizing who you are, but then to start being told that because of who you are, you're actually an incredibly bad person as far as this wonderful clipboard of events and results and tick boxes is concerned. So if anyone is concerned or feels as though they want to reach out and contact somebody if they're feeling that way, please contact us, info@myumbrella.org.uk, and we'll be sure to be able to get you passed on to people that can help you as well. Chrissy?
One thing that the boys haven't done is told our viewers how they can get involved.
Oh, look at that. What a beautiful segue that was. Anyone would think this was scripted. Boys, Aaron, Alex, how can people get involved? How can we help? How can the people out there within our community, wider community, how can they help you do what you do?
I think the first thing is to follow our social media channels. So it's @EqualBloodWales on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. You can email us, bloodequalitywales@gmail.com. But the biggest thing is we've got letter templates to contact. So if you live in Wales, you can contact your MP or your MS, member of the Senedd, Welsh Parliament. Or if you live in England, you've only got MPs, unfortunately. But still, you know, absolutely write to your MP and try and raise the profile. In particular, the MPs who sit on the all-party parliamentary group on blood donation, which is, you know, a really, really key body, really, to bring these decisions to the forefront of the business in Parliament. We're, you know, absolutely happy to answer any questions and provide some information. We've got simple posters and things like that for campaigning. We were hoping this year to visit lots of Pride events, to have a stall and deliver some education outreach on that, but unfortunately COVID-19 has got in the way. So but hopefully the petition that we've got currently ends in just a few days' time, but there's a plan to take the next phase of the campaign forward, and that will be to hold some social events, panel discussions when we're able to do that. So yeah, absolutely, get in touch. We're more than happy, Alex, aren't we, to
absolutely,
with any organisations or any people who are wanting to get involved.
Brilliant. If I could ask both of you just to drop us an email to our info box, so we've got your contact details should we need to pass anyone on to you, or if anyone's got any questions, or if we've got any questions that we can't answer, we would absolutely love to be able to support you with that, and we'll make sure we've got that into our address book as well, so we can potentially pass your details on to other people.
Thank you.
That is, it's been, do you know what, I'm going to be completely honest with everybody as well. I was so unnerved really about doing an episode today regarding anything to do with essentially a medical illness, as it were. And the reason why I was quite uncomfortable about that is, number one, how can you really make a positive episode out of something essentially that can potentially come across incredibly negative? And certainly, as far as what was previously stated before, that being gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender previously was recognised as a medical condition or a mental health complaint, and the fact that we've been able to kind of move things forward so well as far as where we are now is actually incredibly pleasing. So I'm really glad that we've invited you on today and that we've been able to support and help with the wonderful work that you're doing currently. So thank you so much, Aaron and Alex, for joining us today. We really, really do appreciate it, and we'd love you to continue staying on the sidelines for us should we need to call on you again, because we'd love to have you back on. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to pass you over to Tom now, because something interesting is happening, or happened, or in the process of happening at the moment. And all I've got being scribbled on my script in biro, I'd like to point out, is plus flag ace. So I'm going to go with it because, I mean, we love doing stuff that's a bit off the cuff. So over to you.
Yes. So as regular viewers may know, this is separate to the hepatitis topics for today, but I usually talk about a flag of some sort, and there is an hepatitis flag, of course. But what we have got this coming month, August, on the 11th of August, it will be 10 whole years flag was decided upon. So you will probably hear a bit more about asexuality when we come to the asexual episode in October when we do our this week.
It's an entire week dedicated to us eating cake, and we can all put on about 4 stone. It's amazing.
So this flag, which obviously at the moment I'm holding a physical one, back in 2010 there was no asexual community flag at all. There were a couple of icons, but there was nothing in the shape of a flag. So over the course of several weeks, sort of 5 or 6 various users of the forum, Avon forum, were coming up with designs, and there were some horrific ones on there I saw, and I looked through and I was like, oh, I got that one. There were some that were quite nice. And the one that was voted for as the best, as a 50 to shortlist altogether, this was the one that was number 1. And it was first unveiled as the winner on the 11th of August. So I was looking for something that was happening in August, and that is quite a significant thing. So 10 years of the ace flag next week.
There we go. Something for us to celebrate. It's another excuse for us to get another cake. Yes. It is. There's no reason why. Yeah. And for those of you that are worried about the amount of cake you can eat, I'm going to give you this as a gift from one asexual to the entire community, okay? If you buy yourself a cake and you eat the whole thing without slicing it, you've only had one piece. Go with that, okay? That's my thought for the day there, right? So thank you so much again to Aaron and Alex for joining us as well. Just to wrap up today, we have got a lovely thing at the end of the episode that I know nothing about. But just to remind you all, we now not only run local social events when we're coming out of COVID, but also attend a number of prides and have attended a number of prides across the UK. We facilitated training events with a number of blue chip and global corporates to present to them what they need to know about LGBT plus communities and how to be more inclusive as far as their workplaces. We do work closely with the Shout Out LGBT plus radio station and our monthly podcast Under The Brolly, which is not this one, this is the live one. We're allowed to do one where we can make lots of mistakes and edit them out. That one also occurs as well. And we also have an online Etsy store where you can get wonderful, wonderful copies of our guide to LGBT+. We do the mini guides, the larger guides, and also a whole wonderful range of LGBT+ merchandise with all your different flags, genders, sexualities, identities, kinks, and fetishes all over it as well. We supported 21 different prides last year. Sadly, we've supported none of them this year, but we have tried to do it online. So we're looking forward. Well, we have got one actually. We have got one. But we're hoping that we're going to be doing a few more, certainly next year. We travelled over 4,000 miles by road and 1,000 miles by rail. And as far as what we want to do next, please keep watching our different social media platforms, because there is loads going on, and we've got a lot going on at the moment. Much of it we can't really talk about, sadly. It'd be a shame, because we're in the process of planning, aren't we?
Yeah,
we very much are. So don't forget, you can always get in touch with us if you need to. info@myumbrella.org.uk. Again, you can tweet us, start your text with hashtag Under The Brolly, and our handle is @MyUmbrella UK. Our shop is also on Etsy, or you can go onto our website, which is www.myumbrella.org.uk, and just click on the little shop link at the top, and you'll see some beautiful things. We will be back in 2 weeks' time with another Under The Brolly Live, but until then, we're going to close today with some information from Chrissy.
Before I introduce this week's artist, those that viewed at the beginning would have seen a little clippet of two very, very special people getting married. They didn't know it was coming, so on behalf of the whole team, and I'm sure all of our viewers, boys, a very happy anniversary for the other day.
See you in 2 weeks, everyone.
To end today's show, we have another fabulous LGBT+ artist that the team had the privilege of meeting at both Welsh Prides last year. This fabulous, fabulous singer, tonight everyone, is the fabulous Jordan Thomas Bateman, to us, aka fabulous Miss Ruby Slippers, who will be singing us out with Love Is In The Air. Producer Mikey, work your magic.
And shake your dollars. Now what's sense in sharing this one and only life? Ending up on just another lost and lonely life. You count up the years, and we will be filled with tears. Say I'm gonna leave you 100 times a day, when it's easier said than done. When you just can't break away, sing it. Just can't, hey! And young hearts, you run free. You'll never be hung up like my man and me. Hey! My man and me. Come on, man, clap those hands. And young hearts, treat yourself, be true. Don't be not fooling when love really don't love you. Hey! I don't love you. Come on, man, clap those hands. All right. Love is in the air. It's everywhere I look around. Hey! And love is in the air, in every sight and every sound. I don't know if I'm just dreaming. I don't know if I feel safe, but it's something that you're gonna believe in. It's there when you call out my name. Ruby said this, Ruby. Oh, down with the kids.